Welcome back to the Casual GM podcast. I am your host, Drew, and with me, as always, my co host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Just as handsome as ever, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, and part of the reason why is that the Detroit Lions managed to go to Soldier Field or whatever they're calling that stadium now and defeat the Chicago Bears by a single point to get their third win of the season.
It's not how pretty it is. It's just the number at the end.
Right, it's a tally mark league, right? And so when you win by 1 point or 50 points, that tally mark goes in the same column. So
Yep.
So we're pretty happy with the win. The Lions have now equaled their win total from all of last season. So anything that they've built on top of this, I guess you could label as progress. Would you not? Would you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's those expectations of we should be a 10-win team. We might be able to make the playoffs. Anything over 3 wins is better than last year. Incremental progress.
So that talk has started. So up until I think the quote that I liked the most was prior to the Green Bay Packers beating the Cowboys in overtime was that Detroit was second in the division and 1.5 games out of the wild card because they were behind San Francisco. And I was like, let's pump the brakes. Let's just be happy that they just beat the Bears. Like, let's not, size them up for a playoff spot quite yet, So
Right.
let's just be realistic and objective about this kind of thing. So let's talk about the game a little bit.
Before we do that,
Sure.
we got a new sub, and we're trying to get to 50.
That's right.
We went from 39 to 40, so we did
awesome.
that. So
talk about incremental progress.
Incremental. That's all we're looking for, right? So thank you to Kathy Wanderer for subscribing. We are 4/5 of the way to Drew getting a new hat. I might even get a new one because this is seen as better days.
Sure.
As well, but thanks. Anybody else that's listening, watching later, because this is a recording. We're not live today. But like, comment, subscribe, all those things, and tell your friends, all that kind of stuff. So, all right, let's get in the game.
Well done. So the game starts off, I believe they trade field goals, then they trade touchdowns. It's 10-10. And of course, I'm flying through the game at this point just to kind of hit the highlights here. But then the Bears score 2 touchdowns unanswered. So it's 24-10.
Yeah.
Then I believe the Lions go down the field and they get a touchdown. I believe it was from DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
And they come back and they pressure Justin Fields, who throws a pick 6 to Jeff Okudah.
Yep.
Then the Bears come back, and I believe this last scoring play from the Bears was Justin Fields' 67-yard touchdown run, where he just immediately beats Jeff Okudah down the field. So immediately gets revenge karmically,
Yeah.
Now, and I don't remember if this was the extra point that they missed. So they went up 6.
I think it was, because I think it was tied going into that.
So they went up 6, but they had missed the extra point. So now there's a little bit more hope, right? So the Lions get the ball back. They go down the field. They score a touchdown. They convert their extra point attempt. Now they're up 1, and they play out the last 2.5, 3 minutes, trying to get a first down. The Bears punt. There's this back and forth, how are we going to close out the game? And the Lions close out the game. They convert a first down under a minute. Now we can go to victory formation. That's all she wrote, right? So the stat where if you kneel down twice or 3 times at the end of the fourth quarter leads to its automatic victory.
Yeah.
Holds true, right?
Holds true. Yep.
Yeah. Little fun football joke there for everybody.
Yeah.
My goodness, it seems bright in here today. So it's probably because it's extremely dark outside. It's 10 after 5.
Yeah.
But it's, might as well be midnight at this point in the year. But all in all, I thought that the game was ugly, but getting better. I don't have any issues with any of the play calling or decision making that went on in the game. And I think that the defense played well enough and the offense played well enough
Well, so I got a question for you.
Sure.
You say that you don't have any problems with any of the decision making. Are you talking about coaching?
Yes.
Okay, not necessarily quarterback play.
Correct.
Third and 9, 3rd and 10, throw it 4 yards and hope that they run the other 6. I mean, we throw it so far before the sticks on 3rd down. It drives me absolutely nuts.
So right now, I guess I don't have a huge problem with that, only because I think that the wide receivers that they trotted out for this game were Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tom Kennedy, Khalif Raymond, and the recently re-signed Trinity Benson, who we elevated from the practice squad this week. So, of course,
it was it was Denver's.
Right. So, I think that's true.
Yeah.
So, like, he's out there playing for the Lions this week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he gets punched in the larynx at some point during the game and is literally flopping around like a fish out there. And I was just like, holy shit, like what happened to Trinity? Like, I don't want the guy to be punched in the larynx, but like that's effectively what happened. And I believe that was the play that they called back Goff's interception. So do you trade Trinity Benson's larynx for not an interception by Jared Goff? I don't know. But I know I want that win.
It could have been the difference in the game looking back.
That's a good point. So as far as the play calling is concerned, as far as the play calling is concerned, like, I mean, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he is a chain mover. He is not a beat you deep, and I don't know that he's really going to like give you a little wiggle or whatever. Like, he seems to me to be like, he's going to run a crisp route, going to make the catch. He's going to turn it upfield, lower his shoulder, and get 2, 3, 4, 5 extra yards, something like that. But he's not going to like juke you out of your shoelaces and then take off down the sideline. So
yeah,
I don't know that they really have the weapons to throw past the sticks all that often right now.
Yeah, but I mean, there's got to be I mean, are we just not calling plays that go 9 yards and he has to throw it 4 to a heavily covered guy?
So
because a sack at that point, you're still punting it, right?
Sure.
I mean, not that I want him to take a chance to throw, an interception, but like, wait for the play to develop and try to get something downfield because you're punting anyway.
I mean, those are case by case discussions, in my opinion, and like some of them for sure, I think are worth having that discussion.
Yeah.
My overall opinion of Jared Goff being that, like, I think that there are certain things that he's comfortable with.
Yeah.
And he's going to default to those.
Yeah. Checking down to a 3 or 4 yarder is something he's very comfortable with.
Yeah. And like, he can throw a really nice ball. He can. I would say most of the time, I don't necessarily feel like that ball is coming out crisp. I don't think that the ball is placed in a position that like helps the wide receiver much. Like, what I usually feel with Jared Goff is that like he is going to put the ball in a place that's a little bit difficult for the wide receiver to catch it. It's going to be a wobbler, and so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to catch that ball.
Yeah.
And he needs conditions to effectively be perfect in order to get that result.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while you get like a pass he had to Tom Kennedy to convert on a first down that went for
it was a long one, right? Is that the long one, the crossing route where he ended up throwing low and a little bit behind him, but it still hit him in the hands and should have been caught. But if the quarterback would place it better, he would have been more likely to catch it. But it's right?
Tom reached out and snagged this one. He had to really. I mean,
where he
Goff had to lead him on. Goff really led him on this one. So like, good catch by Kennedy, good throw by Goff. You get a conversion, right? Yeah. So, and that's what I would love to see more often.
Yeah.
From him.
I know which one you're talking about now. He had another one where it was kind of a long crossing right to left across the screen. It was probably 25 yards downfield, and it was really low almost to like his knees as he's kind of bending down and kind of a little bit back. But it hits him right in the hands.
Oh, sure.
It could have been caught, but it was one of those
Zylstra's
poorly
the
thrown
one to
ball.
Zylstra. Yeah,
I think it might have been. It was like a poorly thrown ball, but it still should have been caught, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like you get paid $1 million a year. That's something that you should still catch. Hit you right in both mitts.
Yeah, I mean they're paying him roughly $2 million a game, you know. So I was
more talking about Zylstra. Like,
oh, sure, yeah,
it still hit him in both hands. It should have been something he caught.
Yeah, that's the kind of the standard, right? Like if you get your mitts on it, you should probably pull that in, you know. Even
but at the same time, the quarterback's making $2 million a game. You should put it where it's up here, not down here.
Right here, Jared. You know, so, yeah. So like the things that I took away from this game were the Lions made fewer mistakes than the Bears. They were penalized twice. The Bears were penalized, I believe, 8 times.
It was a lot.
Yes, and so and a lot of those penalties were the same kind that I see Detroit getting in previous games during the season, where it's like you held on 3rd down, but now they got a 1st down because you committed the penalty, or like you're putting yourself in 1st and 20, and that's almost always difficult to convert on, you know, and like you're just making things so much more difficult for yourself because you did this one particular thing.
Mental error when they threw Goff down when he was already essentially out of bounds. Like that was a free 15 yards.
Yeah, you know, and so it's like, you know, and so that was, I believe, their rookie Kyler Gordon.
Could have been.
And if you look at that play, Goff was clearly headed out of bounds.
Yeah, he hadn't quite stepped out yet.
No. And so he was like falling to his knees, and Kyler comes up behind him and tries to punch the ball out. But like, and so then they threw a flag, right? But if that's the case and he's that close, and like, you have to think to yourself, like, if I'm successful at this one particular thing, like the odds are that he's going to fumble the ball out of bounds and it's not going to matter anyway. So like, why are you even attempting it? Like, you're putting yourself in a position to have the refs make a decision, and you should limit those kind of opportunities. But yeah, and so like, but that's exactly what we're kind of talking about here, is like the Bears continuously put themselves in situations that they had to make up for.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like the Packers did the week before with all those turnovers, the Lions were able to capitalize on the, you know, penalty disadvantage, you know, disparity between the two teams. So the Lions were only penalized twice, and like that was an extra like 60 or 70 yards. You know, and like it changes the situation quite a bit. And so they also won the turnover battle, and they scored points off that turnover by Jeff Okudah running it back 20 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. And, you know, like you won the turnover battle, you know, you didn't make as many mistakes, you know, and like I thought, good job, you know, and like all that adds up to you winning by 1 point, you know, and like that's the margin of error.
Yep.
So good, you know. Replicate that, you know, like the thing that I would hope that they take into this game with the Giants is try and get forced turnovers. Don't be penalized, you know, have your team be in a position to take advantage of more situations than the opposing team. Football 101, basically.
There are a few things that I noticed out in this game that I thought were good signs. Number one, I thought our defense, other than the very first drive where they just ran the ball down the field and we just, for whatever reason, forgot that Justin Fields could run the ball, and he just killed us. And then the one long run later in the game, for the most part, I thought we adapted to a running quarterback better than we have in the past with guys like Hurts and Tua and that kind of stuff. I thought that first drive and then that one play, you know, notwithstanding, I thought we did a decent job with that. I also thought that one of the things I noticed with Hutchinson is he's got one of his big qualities is a great motor, right? He's always going. He goes 100%. He's got this great motor. And in the past, he over pursued a lot. And that would come back to bite him in the butt a few times where, you know, quarterback steps up and now he's out of the play. I thought that he recovered. He recognized those situations better this game than he has in the past. I think he's dialing it back when he's supposed to. And I thought on that interception by Okudah, Hutch was coming around the end, recognizes that it's a screen, lets the other two defenders come around from the other side, and he backs up. And all of a sudden, what that makes Fields do is that makes him loft the ball up and over. He has to feather past a little lofter.
Right.
And that allowed Koo to come in and catch the ball. And I think a lot of that was because Hutch didn't over pursue. He stepped back to cover that and then forced a totally different kind of throw, which essentially I think it blew that play up. I mean, it also didn't hurt that he was getting pressured from the backside and got hit just after he threw and all that kind of stuff. But I do think Hutch is learning and he's adjusting a little bit on the motor and reading plays. I think, week 2, he goes right after the quarterback. He doesn't catch that as a screen, and he doesn't step back into the play and force that. So it was a great play by Okudah. It was a great play by the two guys rushing around the other end. And I thought it was a really good play by Hutch to kind of make them change. Make him change that decision at the last second. He's a second-year, quarterback. He's going to make these kind of mistakes, and I think it was a overall good play by the defense that time.
Yeah, Malcolm Rodriguez is not playing this game. He's out with an elbow injury. They elevated Jared Davis from the practice squad to play. He saw about 12 snaps on defense. Derek Barnes got the lion's share of those missing snaps from Rodriguez. I think it's very clear that the linebacking core is primarily special teamers, and you need to upgrade at least one slot in the offseason outside of Rodriguez and Barnes in order to have a quality unit there, like a quality linebacker room. So, what's becoming clear to me, this game kind of really frightened me in a lot of ways because Justin Fields did that with no help at all.
Yeah.
And the Bears have a very good running game, and they have a quarterback that can just absolutely gash you. Why San Francisco did not take Justin Fields at 3 in his draft year is I will never understand. So to think of that guy on San Francisco's roster right now is kind of fun. But the Lions should prepare for Justin Fields to be able to do this to them twice a year for at least the next 3, 4, 5 seasons and potentially much longer. So when they head into the draft this year and free agency, there's only one thing that I'm really looking forward to, and that's you need speed on defense.
Yeah.
You have got to be able to adjust to him laterally, and you've got to have someone that can chase him down when he breaks one, because you're probably not going to simply contain him the entire time, but that's got to be the plan so that he doesn't hurt you like he did with his legs. And you have to force him to be a passer and put the onus on him as a decision maker.
Yeah.
So if they don't adjust to his presence in the division by going out and acquiring defensive talent effectively, it could be Chicago's division and not Detroit's. So I'm happy they won, but I would be taking some notes if I was Brad Holmes. So,
well, keeping him contained, I thought was interesting this week. One of the things that my dad has said, when you have a running quarterback, why don't you have a linebacker or somebody spying him to make sure he doesn't beat you? And the coaches, I don't remember if it was Aubrey Pleasant or if it was AG, Aaron Glenn, that mentioned it after, who was the first person that ran down our throat?
Jalen Hurts did it pretty well in the first game.
Yeah, they were asking him, why don't you have somebody spying on him? And it's that doesn't work in the NFL, because what you do is when you have 11 defenders, they have 11 offensive players. If you have one of your guys spying on that quarterback and that quarterback doesn't run, you've effectively made your team a 10 versus 11 disadvantage. Every time he doesn't run, you are disadvantaged for the rest of that play. And he's we don't do that. We don't spy because of that. And there was one play, it was a third down. and because my dad had mentioned that again, like, why don't they spy on this guy, because he was hurting us. And it was like a 3rd and, I don't know, 8 or something like that, and they had Hutch kind of back, almost playing like the slot right in the middle of the field, but kind of back watching Hurts, and he stays back in the pocket and he throws an open spot because we're disadvantaged. I'm like, Dad, this is why. Like, this play was the exact reason why. You could see him kind of waiting there, looking at Hurts, and then all of a sudden you got nothing. You're disadvantaged. You got an open guy that you can't cover, and they pick up the first down. So if anybody's like, well, why don't you put a linebacker to spy, or somebody to spy on the quarterback? Ultimately you just can't. You disadvantage your team too much by doing that consistently. Maybe a play here or there if you are really thinking this might be a draw, or a pre-configured, pre-built scramble type of thing. Or like if you think it's an RPO, come in, well, maybe then, but like you can't just do it as a general rule.
Sure. And like maybe you can do a little bit of it sometimes, like in certain situations when it's more likely or less like, I don't know, but like,
yeah.
Like the recipe for containing a mobile quarterback in the modern NFL is that it's almost impossible no matter what you do.
Yeah.
That's why they're so sought after. Like, that's why having a quarterback that's mobile on a rookie deal is maybe the best asset in football currently.
Yeah.
So like the Bears seem smart that they invested in that particular kind of asset. And like, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what the Bears do in free agency, because I think they're probably going to get a lot better quick.
Yeah.
Like I've
they
seen
more
some
cap room now, don't they?
Who
doesn't Bears haven't they fixed their cap a little bit where they got a bit more space than they had before?
Yes, a little bit. They're going into this offseason with 110 to 120 million dollars in cap space.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's half the cap.
Wow.
So like, and like they don't need to. It's not like they need to replace 35 players either. It's So, plus they have a full complement of. I think they have a full complement of draft picks. They might be down 1 or 2 mid-round picks, but they have their own pick in the first round. That's going to be important. And they're gonna, they have more picks than they had last year. So I mean,
they had capital with Roquan Smith.
Right, exactly. So like they traded Robert Quinn, they traded Roquan Smith. They did trade for Chase Claypool. So it's kind of like they traded Roquan for Claypool plus like a 5th rounder or something like that. So we'll see how that works out. But they're making moves, and they're probably making moves in the right spots. And I've seen some projections where like they signed like Yannick Ngakoue and Daron Payne, and all of a sudden their defensive line looks pretty solid, and that kind of thing. So we'll see. Plus they have a really young offensive line, and if that you make one change or whatever and everybody kind of grows up a little bit in their second year, like I think you're looking at a team that's on the ascent, and like that's worrisome because you were hoping that they would continue to screw it up. So
Green Bay's on kind of the descent, I think, just cap space and what they've done, and we want them to be on the descent and us being on the ascent. We don't want anybody with us.
Right. And so like, what do you do in Minnesota? Like, will Kirk Cousins be around? Like they're going to have to pay Justin Jefferson at some point, like.
I think they have to keep Cousins, don't they?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like, is Derek Carr going to be available? I mean, that would be an upgrade.
Is he better than Cousins? Isn't he just different?
Well, I mean, like, it different, possibly, but like, if you're different in a certain way and it works better with the roster that you've constructed, then that's good.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that he's kind of like the same but different. Like, as still kind of a pocket.
What does that mean? I mean, like,
well, I'm just. I mean, it's like the same type of same type of player, same quality of player, just different name.
Well, I mean, like I think that he's probably like around the same tier that Kirk Cousins is in, but like, is he going to cost the Minnesota Vikings $36 million guaranteed? I don't know.
Maybe,
but I mean, if you save $5 million or $10 million or whatever it is. And, you get a different guy that's effectively the same thing that might be able to do some different things with Justin Jefferson. I mean, that's probably a risk worth taking. Like, there's your quarterback play kind of determines your ceiling as to how far you can go in the NFL.
Yeah.
And so like, if you know what Kirk Cousins is and you want to try and get to the Super Bowl or make a deep playoff run or win the division or whatever it is, and you know what Kirk Cousins can do for you, like, all things being perfect, like, I think you probably need to make a change. And if they decided to go with something like, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be available in the offseason. A lot.
Yeah, like good ones.
Like, the quarterback carousel never really stops. And with all these teams like changing, like, I don't know how many of these guys that were taken as rookies in like the third round last year are going to be available. Is Desmond Ridder going to be available? Is Davis Mills going to be available? Like, I mean, it sounds weird to say, but like, if the Vikings or a team like the Vikings are like, well, we could invest cheaply in this guy, and then if he beats out whomever, who knows, but like, I think who Kirk Cousins is on the Vikings,
right?
So you have to make the decision, like, are we gonna, like,
is he enough?
There's a really big fear in the NFL of moving on from the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins probably isn't going to get you fired,
right?
But is he going to win a Super Bowl? Also probably not. So it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, I think he's in the tier that's capable of winning a Super Bowl.
So
not likely necessarily, but capable.
Yeah. I would say that he is the definition of a quarterback where things around him need to be good for him to play well.
Yeah.
And if you're that guy, you should always have at least one eye on, quote unquote, what's available,
Yeah.
So
I just don't think that they're going to be in a position to go for a franchise quarterback. That's why I say, well, don't they kind of have to keep him? I mean that, like, they're not going to get Bryce or CJ, right? CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. They're not in that position.
Why not? Why couldn't they say?
They could. They're like, yeah, here's this year's first, next year's first, and a third round draft choice or whatever, right, and try to move way up if they wanted to.
Right.
That's a lot, though, to do that.
If you think you're upgrading at quarterback and the rest of the roster's, a 7-win or 8-win roster, whatever they are now, 7 wins.
They were 7-1, and I think they won in just a bizarre game, just crazy.
It was weird. They won it though. They
did. They're 8-1 now.
Yeah, and so like, if you're convinced that CJ Stroud is the quarterback that's going to help unlock the next level of Justin Jefferson, which seems ridiculous to even say at this point, considering how good he is, you have to think about that. Kirk Cousins has a floor and a ceiling, and I think they're probably pretty close to one another. But like, if you have an opportunity,
consistent, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and who knows if there's going to be some other quarterback between during the second half of the season who becomes disenfranchised with his roster or with his situation, and wants to be traded, and like, who is that guy? And we still don't have an answer on like Lamar Jackson, and like all this other kind of stuff there. So there are question marks up in the air, and no one thought that Matt Ryan would be traded last season. He was, like Deshaun Watson got traded, amidst all the controversy. So like, NFL teams have demonstrated repeatedly that if there is an opportunity to upgrade, they'll pay almost any price, and it happens almost every year.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is like, that's still hanging out there, and I won't really believe it until we're ready to take the snap week 1 of the 2023 season. So
yeah. So speaking of like quarterbacks, one of the things, so got to watch the game live. I usually watch it on NFL Plus afterwards, but I watched it with my dad, my brother, and my uncle, and my other brother, cousin. Like, so it was just a big old family thing watching the game. It was pretty negative around Goff. I didn't think he played particularly well. We did win. We put up 31 points. 24 of those points were on offense. That said, I still don't think he played particularly well. So we were talking about the draft, who we should go with. And there were some fairly strong opinions on like C.J. Stroud versus Bryce Young, and one of the one of the comments that I heard about Bryce Young, because like Bryce Young is my pick. Like if we're drafting one overall, or if they're both on the board, I would take Young over Stroud. But one of the comments was like, Bryce Young's only 6 foot.
Sure.
Do we want to take a 6 foot quarterback who's not as mobile as CJ Stroud? So you're looking at
way more mobile than CJ Stroud.
Someone who is more mobile than CJ Stroud. So he's not a pocket passer.
Yeah.
But he's also fairly short. So if he's behind that line, we got big guys like Ragnow and Sewell and Decker out there. Like, are you going to see over your 6'3" center? Is that going to be a problem, or do we have to roll him out just for him to be able to do it? Is he worth the go? So curious what your take is on drafting a 6 foot quarterback that's mobile versus a taller quarterback that's maybe a little bit more pockety.
So I guess my question is broader than, I guess my take is a little bit more broad on that. It's like, explain to me like all the short quarterbacks who aren't working out, who are taken at like 1 overall or in the top 10. Like who are these midgets that just aren't working? Because like the last I checked, the Cardinals got better when they took Kyler Murray. Are they making deep playoff runs? No. Are they picking in the top 10? No. Like Russell Wilson has won a Super Bowl. Seems okay to me. Like Lamar Jackson is not exactly a big dude. He's bigger than Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But like he has missed 3 or 4 games in 5 years. So I mean, like Jared Goff has missed more than that. Seems to me it's better to be mobile and being able to get around than to not, and like I'm not saying that he needs to be Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a tank. Like
watch him run over people yesterday.
Yeah, like Josh Allen has never heard of sliding. Like Josh Allen lowers his shoulder and goes through guys. And like safety linebacker.
It's basically linebacker on linebacker, except he's the linebacker with momentum.
Yeah. So like, here's my take on the quarterback position this year. In the first round, you either draft Bryce Young or you don't draft a quarterback. I don't care. Like, I would change my opinion if CJ Stroud decided that he was going to move off his spot ever. He doesn't.
What do you mean by that?
He is a statue. Now, he doesn't need to be a statue. Like, he has athleticism. He just never does it.
Yeah.
So, like,
because he doesn't have to. I mean, is it just because they make a nice pocket and he's like, I'll just wait and pick you guys off because I don't have to do anything. I'll step up in the pocket and make a throw.
If that's the case, then like you would have to project that when he moves to the NFL, that won't be what he'll see most of the time.
Right.
He will have less quality pockets and less time to make decisions and having to throw into tighter windows. So all of that seems like that's an obstacle that you're going to have to climb, right? That's something you're going to have to overcome. And like, whether or not you're able to do that is probably the difference between being a good quarterback in the NFL and not being a good quarterback in the NFL, really.
Mm-hmm.
So he's accurate. When he can set his feet and throw, he's the most accurate quarterback maybe in the draft. Like, that's why he's up there as a top 2 overall pick. I just would rather have the traits that like Bryce Young brings to the table, mobility, like poise, like he never gets rattled. Like he's like the things about him are like everything that you need and want him to be in order to, like, we have seen like translate to the NFL. He has, except height and weight. So like he's not going to get any taller. He could probably put on a few pounds if he gets into an NFL training program. But like the only other knock on him that I've heard is that he is toesy, which means that he stands up on his toes. So he doesn't get as much drive into the ball because you can't turn your hips or like plant off your back foot as much when you're up on your toes. But that's just a footwork issue.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get with a quarterback's coach and fix that or improve on it.
Mechanics are fixable.
Yeah, but his arm strength, his vision, his leadership, his poise, all of these things are things that scouts are raving about. And like people are like, Will Levis. Okay, Will Levis is 24 years old. So, like, that's not a great thing. But, like, he is a toolsy quarterback who's 24 years old. So, this would be traditionally his third season in the NFL. He's, if you draft a kid when he's 21, he's 24. That's 3 years. You're seeing what this level of Will Levis is effectively halfway through his rookie contract, but he's still in college football.
Right.
So, like, this is my same argument for Hendon Hooker. So, like, these guys you're going to have less time with them on their team before they hit the, like, peak age of 30 years old or whatever than you would a normal quarterback who doesn't have, like, either the extended eligibility or whatever reasoning why they're in college for another year or two. And at this point in their collegiate careers, for however long they've been playing, you're only now just seeing that development, which you're seeing better versions of with Stroud and Young. So, like, to me, I think that the Lions should either get Bryce Young, however you get him, or you draft a dude like 4th, 5th, 6th round, and you cut Nate Sudfeld and you plug in a rookie as your backup, and you develop that.
If we're drafting 5 or 6, Bryce Young's off the board. Stroud's still there.
Yeah,
but obviously the ones in between have been the stud defensive players. Don't we just take Stroud at 5 or 6?
So if Jalen Carter and Will Anderson are off the board, I would probably
assume
take
so
Stroud.
In that scenario, right?
If one of them's on the board, I would take that player over Stroud. So, like, it doesn't do any good to take Stroud if he's not going to play, snap 1 week 1. So, like, say get your $20 million from cutting Jared Goff. At that point, free agency is largely over. So, like, the $20 million is really just money heading into, the season. So it's not doing you nearly as much good. So, like, to me, the thing to watch is how Detroit finishes out the second half of the season. Where is the Rams pick? Where is our pick? So the Rams' strength of schedule, their tiebreaker on their pick is quite low. So when they tie with other teams that have the same record as they do, they're going to pick higher than those other teams, which is good for Detroit. Detroit's in the opposite position with its pick. So our strength of schedule is higher than most other teams. So when we tie and we look at the other 2-3 teams that are going to have our record, we pick below those other teams. So it doesn't do us any good to pick up the worthless 5th or 6th win, even though, like, that would quote unquote show progress, because now you're just moving down into other tiers of teams that you're going to pick last in. So, like, every win's going to drop the Lions 5, 6, 7 spots in the draft. So that Rams pick had better be a good one.
Well, they're 3-6 after getting pounded yesterday.
Right. So, like, if I'm the Rams, like, just shut Stafford down for the rest of the year. Like, come on. So that would be my hope. Is that
if you were the Rams, would you actually shut him down the rest of the year?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
I was going to say.
But I mean, like, their O-line, Cooper Kupp just had his ankle rolled up on him. We haven't seen what kind of prognosis he's going to have to return. He's their only legitimate offensive weapon at this point, which is shocking to say. But I mean, like, at some point, just playing the guys that you're paying all the money to becomes untenable. And, like, maybe you sit them down the last game or whatever, but you're not going to shut down Matthew Stafford in week 11.
Yeah.
Of the NFL season. Like, I'm just saying that.
What are you going for, right?
What are the Lions going for?
Yeah. Well, right, because you're not getting that first round pick.
Right.
So exactly. I'm looking at the league standings.
This is why trading up in the draft or trading first round picks is usually terrible.
Yeah.
Like, there are 5 teams, I believe, in the first round that have an additional first round pick. 4 of them are in the top 10. Shit, there's a pretty good chance that Philadelphia finishes the season with the number 1 overall pick because the Saints are terrible.
No.
I mean, think about this. If you're the Philadelphia Eagles and you get the first overall pick in the draft, what do you even do with it? You probably take Will Anderson. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Whatever you
yeah.
want. And then Howie Roseman's up for another executive of the year next season because you got the number one overall pick and you're just being a genius out there.
Yeah,
But like,
I'm looking at the draft order. Right now, the Houston Texans 1-6-1 is first. Carolina 2-7, they're second. The Raiders are 2-6, they're third. Pittsburgh is 2-6, they're fourth. Oh, you know what? This must be before because it lists us as 2-6. So this is, damn it,
bro, I got you. Don't even worry about it. Hang on 1 second. I got this. The resource that anybody listening to this, the resource that you want to use for the NFL draft order is tankathon.com. They do game by game updates. So, like, if you check it at 1 p.m. on a Sunday and 4 p.m. on a Sunday, those things are different.
Okay.
So, and they utilize the methodology that the NFL uses to either assign the picks and determine like playoff seeding. So you basically get the most accurate projection of what the NFL draft order will look like if the draft were to happen today. So right now we've got Houston, Vegas, Carolina, Philadelphia via New Orleans, Jacksonville, Chicago, Seattle from Denver, Detroit from LA, Houston from Cleveland, Pitt at 10, Detroit at 11 with their own pick. And so there are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams tied at 3 and 6, and Detroit picks last out of all of those teams. So,
yeah.
So think about that.
But the interesting thing is looking at those teams. Yeah. Houston, they're in the market for a quarterback.
Yes.
Vegas has Derek Carr.
But if you finish the season with the second overall pick, are you really not going to take a quarterback?
I mean, if say they take Bryce Young, CJ Stroud's there, they may not, depending on what they feel about Carr. I could see them doing both, basically. Sure. Maybe they go with.
Let's call it 50-50.
Right. So let's pretend they didn't.
Right.
Carolina.
They're going to.
Philadelphia won't. Jacksonville won't. Chicago won't. Seattle probably would.
Well, so the buzz that I'm hearing is that Geno's probably coming back.
He's playing great.
If you're Seattle and you can say, we're going to give Geno a $20 million a year contract, say it's 2 years, 3 years, $20 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
You're a cheap quarterback who's proven who's getting a huge pay raise.
Yep.
And you can invest all those picks into making the team better. And so far this season, they are currently, 6-4, for God's sakes. Everyone had them pegged in the race for the number one overall pick at the beginning of the year. They just drafted 2 bookend tackles, what appears to be a very good running back. You found Tariq Woolen in the 5th round. You found Kobe Bryant, who's the unsung member of that secondary. I mean, like, there's not too many picks out there. They drafted Boye Mafe, who's like at worst a developmental pass rusher. Like,
right.
They are in a position to add a lot of young, cheap talent to this roster. And if you give them a veteran quarterback that's on the ascent, like, who knows? Like, you could challenge for the division. So
yeah,
I would say no.
So we get Houston, Carolina, and maybe Vegas.
Right.
So we got 2.5 teams ahead of us that would take a quarterback, which means we're probably either going to have to trade draft capital to move up. Would you trade, say everything ended today, and we've got the 8 and the 11. Would you trade 8 and 11 to move up to 1?
No.
You wouldn't trade 8 and 11 to get.
There are too many needs. So if I was drafting 8 and 11, what I would look at is something like. So I did a mock yesterday for fun after the games were finished, and I came away with like Miles Murphy, defensive end from Clemson, and Cam Smith, cornerback from South Carolina. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. Like, I have Jared Goff. I'm not in love with Jared Goff.
Right.
Jared Goff, however, is also a quarterback that is like a legit starter in the NFL. He's not like you're going to start Nate Sudfeld or whatever.
Yeah.
So I could see giving, under certain circumstances, I could see giving Jared Goff another season. And then like, okay, we're investing on the defensive line, we're investing in the secondary. Now we have 2 picks in the second round. We have Detroit's pick, we have the Vikings pick. So you go out and maybe you get like a linebacker and you get, I don't know, a wide receiver because DJ Chark's contract's up. Okay, so like you head into next season and like, what does next season look like? You have Jameson Williams back healthy, knock on wood. You've got continuity on the offensive line. You've got Jared Goff at quarterback. You've added another defensive end. You've added a cornerback. You've added another player maybe at linebacker for having a different new starter at every level in that defense. Like, okay, like now I would say like the expectations that people had this season would be realistic for what that team looks like heading into 2023. But
right.
You are not going to get the number 1 overall pick for the 8th and the 11th pick in the draft. You'll have to give up more. So
it's fair.
If Bryce Young drops to 4 for some reason, I would maybe call and ask whomever's there, like, hey, what's your price? And make a decision about it. But he's the only one that I think can come in and pick the ball up where Jared Goff left it. And it's like we're not really missing much when it comes to adjusting to this rookie quarterback. The other thing to think about is if they delay drafting a rookie quarterback, that might be their bargaining chip to say, Sheila, we're going to go into free agency this upcoming year in 2024, and we're going to replace Jared Goff. Give us this quarterback. Let us play out these like head coaching and GM contracts and see where the team is. Like we're building the rest of the roster. Let's try and add the quarterback and see what we can do. Like let's make the playoffs, like that kind of thing.
Right.
So delaying the move at quarterback might add another opportunity for them to keep both their jobs. So who knows? Like, I don't think that it would be good for the Lions to just like rush that decision at quarterback. In 2024's class, you have Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, and Drake May, all that are going to be able to be drafted. Like that would be the time I would think like you want to put all your chips in the middle and go all in. So
what about in say the 3rd round? I'm not sure like where these guys are projected, but sure. What about like an Anthony Richardson from Florida or a Tyler Van Dyke from the U, one of those guys as a potential, almost not quite developmental, but not necessarily a day 1 starter. So I guess that's the definition of developmental, right?
Sure.
But what about one of the? Let me just strike that, reverse it. But like, what about one of those guys as a developmental guy in the 3rd or 4th round if they're still available there?
So I guess my question would be, if that's the thinking, why not do that last year? So had guys.
I think the answer to that is we weren't exactly sure. Our roster was so bad. It was first year of everything. We didn't exactly know what we might have had in Goff. Is a change of scenery. Is he going to thrive in year 2? Because the last 7 games of the season, we went 3-1 or something like that. So like, yep. Stuff was starting to fall into place. But like, that's my answer, I guess, is we weren't sure. It was 3-1, closer to what we were getting, even with this bad team, what Goff can do, or was it the first 0-11? Like, where was he? And I think they wanted to give him another year. And I think they probably just didn't have any quarterbacks that fell to him that they felt were good enough to go, we'll give him a go. But like, what's his name? The Florida, Anthony Richardson, dude, 6'4", and he runs a 4.48. Like, right. He's fast. He's got a lot of he's athletic. Like, he's the kind of guy, if you can get him in the 3rd round, that maybe would be almost like a Dak Prescott. Dak was drafted in the 3rd round, right?
So 3rd or 4th, yeah, something like that.
So like, I could see him being one of those guys that just go, well, give him a go. Maybe he surprises us.
If you do that, I don't think that you get rid of Jared Goff. I think that you have to have
Correct.
Jared Goff.
I think you keep him at least 1 more year.
Yeah. So I guess my opinion would be, if one of those guys is there, that's fine. So, like,
Yeah.
I think that's a worthwhile investment. Quarterbacks tend to hold their value. So I think you could probably recoup most of what that pick was if you ended up trading, say, Tyler Van Dyke a year or two out or whatever. If you have the option to like trade up and get Drake May or whatever, Tyler Van Dyke or Anthony Richardson are not going to prevent you from going and getting a better rookie quarterback next year,
Right.
or so what have you. So I don't mind that approach. I would say, like, I am going to be interested to see what the Lions do in that spot, because it'll give us a clue to their thinking,
Yeah.
over the long term. So, like, if they do take Anthony Richardson or somebody like that, or Tyler Van Dyke in the third round, okay, now I'm kind of seeing like how they're valuing these positions. But the only time you really get a chance to do that is by going through yet another draft class, right? So,
yeah. Well, I've got just a couple minutes here. I'm up north on vacation, but I didn't want to miss out on this, so I took a detour to Big Rapids Public Library, and they're going to be closing in less than 5 minutes. So they haven't knocked on the door and shooed me out yet, but they've been nice enough to let me stay here. So I'm going to have to go.
okay.
But as always, it's been good, especially when we get to talk about a win.
Sure.
So.
A lot of people are happy right now. That's great. So let's hope. They're obviously going to try and keep this ball rolling, going to New York to play the Giants this upcoming weekend. So we will see. I think that the Giants are their record, but they also seem beatable. So we'll see what happens.
You are what your record says you are, but there's also overperforming your talent level is a thing, and you don't typically do that forever, because otherwise that's just your talent level, right?
Right.
It's not overperforming. It's just
that's who you are.
Right. But I definitely think it's a beat. Their record is significantly better than us, but I think it's a beatable team.
Sure, I do too.
So
if you have questions, feel free to email us at casualgmpodcast@gmail.com, and we will get to them on the air. Otherwise, Mike, enjoy your vacation.
I will do my best. You too. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.